She fell at the feet of the most dangerous man in the city, and instead of walking away, he knelt down. Victor Kane built his empire on fear, on blood, on rules no one dared to break. But the night a broken waitress refused to move out of his way, something inside him cracked. He paid her debt. He healed her legs. He gave her a life. But nothing in Victor Kane's world is ever truly free, and when the shadows he created began hunting the woman he couldn't stop thinking about, he was forced to ask a question he had never asked before. What is a monster willing to become for love? Welcome to this channel, where we tell stories about powerful men who rule the dark and the unexpected love, family bonds, and human connections that quietly break them open from the inside. Because sometimes the person who saves you is the same one who first broke the world around you. And true strength isn't about how much you can take, it's about what you choose to protect. If this story already has your heart racing, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me the name of your city, Victor Kane is curious, and subscribe so you never miss the next story. Someone out there needs to hear this one. Share it with them.
The buzzing lights of this place were a symptom of the disease, a flickering heartbeat for a dying business. For 3 weeks, they said. It was a sign of neglect, of a man who could not manage his own affairs, and a man who cannot manage a light bulb certainly cannot manage my money. The woman moved through the room with a broken rhythm, a slight drag of her left leg, a flaw in her design. Regulars ignored it. Newcomers stared. It was a visible reminder of her limits. 4 years ago, a car had shattered her. Now she carried the damage forever. 3 surgeries, 14 pins, a body that betrayed her with every step. That was the price of someone else's mistake. At the grill, a cook worked like a machine. His hands moved with the tired grace of 15 years, a man who understood routine, who knew his place. He told her their boss was hiding, locked away. Her hand tensed on a coffee pot. 1.5 hours. That was a long time to hide from a debt. It was the coward's way. Hiding meant he knew he was wrong. He had broken the agreement. I heard it was about money, she whispered. The cook looked at her. His eyes held the heavy weight of a man who sees the end coming. It is always about money. The evening crowd was a collection of ghosts. An old man poisoning his coffee with sugar, a trucker devouring a piece of pie, and the new girl, Emma, wiping clean tables with a desperate energy. She was 19. She had that unbroken look, the kind the world has not yet taught its hard lessons, the kind I am here to teach. Are you okay? The girl asked the cripple. Her face was soft with a useless concern. Just tired. You are always tired. The girl kept cleaning. When was your last day off? I cannot afford one. But you are limping more. You should sit. The front door swung open. We walked in. The air grew cold. It always does when I arrive. My suits are a uniform. They speak of order, of control, of a world that she does not understand. They are an armor that costs more than 6 months of her life. But it was not the wool or the silk that made her stomach tighten. It was the way we moved. We are wolves. This diner is our hunting ground. We see everything. I am younger than my men. My face is a tool. It can be a mask of civility or a promise of pain. I looked at this failing place and felt nothing but disdain. We are here for Sal. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. My voice is calm. It is a weapon more effective than any gun. The cook froze. The young girl turned pale. The old man found his coffee fascinating. The cripple found her voice. He is in a meeting. A lie. A pathetic, clumsy lie. You can get him. I gave her a smile that was all sharp edges. Now. I will go, the young one whispered, already moving. No. The cripple stopped her. A foolish instinct to protect. I will do it. She walked toward the office. I watched her limp. Each step was an advertisement of her own brokenness. The office door was cheap. I could hear his voice, high, desperate. I know I am late. I need one more week. Empty promises from a weak man. She knocked. He opened the door. His face was a wreck of sweat and fear. He looked 10 years older. "There are men here," she said. "They are looking for you." He closed his eyes. He had just heard his own eulogy. "Tell them 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, Lena." She came back to us. My men had taken their positions. One at the door, one at the counter. I stood in the center of the room. I owned this space. The young one hid behind the register. Her knuckles were white. "He needs 5 minutes," the cripple said. "He has had 3 months." I looked at my watch. A Rolex. A symbol that time is a resource I control. His time is up. I do not know what this is about. No. I cut her words away. You do not. Go back to your coffee. Let the adults talk. A flicker of something in her eyes. Anger. She had lived a life of being dismissed, of being seen as less. And I was no different. But this was not her world. "This is a diner," she said. Her voice was steady, a surprising thing. "Either order something or leave." The room went silent. The lights stopped buzzing. I turned my head. I studied her. Like a scientist examines a strange new bug. "What is your name?" "Lena." "Lena." I let the name sit on my tongue. It tasted of weakness. "Do you know who I am? Should I?" One of my men made a sound. It was a warning to her. Not to me. "My name," I said, making each word a hammer blow, "is Victor Kane." The name landed. I saw it in her eyes. Even in her small, sheltered world, my name meant something. It meant order. It meant consequences. It meant that the rules were now mine, the reason people lock their doors, the reason they look the other way. She had just told Victor Kane to order a coffee. "I see you have heard of me." My smile was not for comfort. "Good. Now this is what happens. Sal will come out. He will pay the $50,000 he owes me, plus interest. Then we will leave. No one gets hurt. It is clean. It is business. $50,000. The number was like a foreign language to her. She had perhaps $700 to her name. And if he does not have it? Her voice was a thin wire, but it did not break. Then things get messy. I said it like I was talking about the rain. And nobody wants that. The door opened. Sal came out. He looked like a dead man. His shirt was wet with fear. His hands shook. He held the door frame to stand. "Mr. Kane." His voice was broken glass. "I know I am late. I just need more time. 2 more weeks. You needed 3 months, Sal. I gave you 3 months." Excuses followed. The diner, the equipment, the health inspector. "These are not my problems." My voice remained level. "Shouting is for men who have lost control. Do you know how many people owe me money? Do you know what happens if I am merciful? Chaos happens. Weakness spreads. Please." He was begging. It was a disgusting sound. "I have money. 30,000. More than half. Just 2 more weeks. 2 weeks becomes 2 months. 2 months becomes never." I watched him. My eyes were cold. "Do you think I run a charity? Do you think I built my world by being soft? I will get it. I swear on my life. Your life." An interesting offer. I moved. The gun was in my hand. It was not a threat. It was a tool of negotiation. A part of the conversation. Emma, the young one, made a small animal sound. "Here is my counter offer," I said. My voice was calm. "You give me the 30,000 now. In cash. And for the rest?" My eyes moved across the room. They were a spotlight. They landed on Emma, and they stayed there. This was simple maintenance. A gear in my machine had slipped. Sal owed a debt. Debts must be paid. That is the rule. It is how order is preserved. Then I saw the girl, Emma, an asset, young, easily molded. A perfect instrument to settle the account. It was a clean, logical solution. Then the other one moved. Lena. She put her broken body between me and my property. A laughable gesture. Her words were empty air. She was a child playing at defiance. I saw the terror in her eyes. It was familiar. It was boring. Her legs trembled. Every part of her screamed weakness. She offered to be an obstacle. I decided to prove she was nothing more than a stone in the road, one I could step over without a thought. I would show her the true meaning of power, the kind that does not need to shout. My hand moved. I did not need to use force. Just a simple touch, a demonstration of the difference between us. Her broken leg gave way, just as I knew it would. She collapsed, a marionette with its strings cut. She landed at my feet, the proper place for her. Then she began to beg. The sound was raw, stripped of pride. She was not begging for herself. She was begging for the other one. She spoke of school, of a younger brother, of a life I had no interest in. It was all noise, until she said she could not run. She could not fight. She could not do anything. This was truth. A moment of pure, honest weakness. It was interesting. I asked about her leg. Her answer was predictable, but her survival was not. She chose to work. She chose to stand. Her reason was a poison I had purged from my system long ago. Sentiment. She saw herself in the girl. She acted because no one had acted for her. A foolish, beautiful impulse. In my world, such things are a fatal flaw. But they are also rare, incredibly rare. A new calculation formed in my mind. The debt was dust. The girl was a commodity. But this loyalty, this broken, defiant courage, that was a resource. It was something I could use. So I changed the terms. I would not take. I would give. I would purchase her allegiance with a grand gesture. I would own her gratitude. I would make her indebted to me in a way money never could. I asked her name again, Lena Hayes. I would remember it. I would own it. The sound of money filled the room. Sal's pathetic collection of bills. I had it replaced, an obscene amount, enough to buy his loyalty for life. The shock on their faces was a satisfying return on my investment. I looked at Lena on the floor. I called my payment a gift from her. This tied her to me. She was the author of their salvation, and I was the author of hers. I walked out into the night. My men followed. I left behind a legend, a story they would tell for years. The monster who showed mercy. They would not understand. Mercy is for the weak. This was an acquisition. Marcus, the cook, rushed to her. He helped her up. He could not understand that she was no longer his to protect. She belonged to the man she had defied. 3 days. I let her live in the world I had created, a world where I was a savior. The entire neighborhood buzzed with the story. She became a local hero. Then I sent my messenger, James Carter. He is clean. He is polite. He does not look like me. He is the civilized face I wear for such occasions. He would offer her an opportunity, a choice that was not a choice. Her friend Marcus warned her. He was smarter than he looked. He knew there was a price. Everything has a price. She already knew it too. She could feel the hook. Men like me do not give gifts. We make investments. The question was what I wanted. The answer was simple. I wanted her. A necessary kindness. She was strong. My man James presented the card. Quality paper, raised lettering, the kind that speaks of power without a word. I was impressed with her that night, her courage, her devotion to a stranger. I decided to help her. I could give her a life without pain. The thought was a gift. Her hand would touch the broken leg hidden from the world. She would say it is impossible. She has seen doctors. The damage is permanent. The doctors were covered by insurance. They are paid to make people functional, not whole. James would lean in. I have access to true healers, to methods that work. All expenses would be covered: surgery, recovery, medicine, everything. She would ask why. The question would be sharp. Why would I do such a thing? Because I can, and because I choose to. She would not believe it is free. She would be right. In return, I asked for her time. Dinner, once a week. Simple conversation. Company. Nothing more. She would stare. Dinner. Only dinner. That is all. I knew she would not believe it. I understand doubt. I would feel the same. James would offer another card. A name, an address, a number. Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the very best surgeons in this country. She was expecting a call for an appointment. She could listen to the doctor, get a real opinion about her leg, then she could decide. And if she refused the dinner, then that was her choice. No, I do not force people to accept gifts. James would stand, a perfect picture of my organization's efficiency, but he would make her think about a life without constant pain, a life without a limp, without the pity in people's eyes, without the fear that her body would fail her completely. For this, I am asking for only a few hours a week, to talk with someone who wants nothing from me but the truth. He would leave the cards and walk away. She would sit there for a long time, staring at them. Dr. Sarah Chen, the chance to walk again, all for the price of dinner with a man they call a crime boss. It seemed insane. A trap, of course. But that night, alone in her small apartment, the pain would be her most honest advisor. She would think of my offer, of walking without planning every single step, of feeling normal again. At 2 in the morning, she made the call. A professional answered immediately, calm and prepared, as if middle-of-the-night calls were routine. Dr. Chen's office, how can I help you? My name is Lena Hayes. I was told to schedule a visit. Of course, Miss Hayes. We have you down for 10 in the morning. The consultation will be about 2 hours. Will you need directions? No. I wait. I did not confirm. I was quite sure she would call. My associate's voice would be warm. Shall we expect you at 10? Lena should have said no. She should have hung up the phone. Yes. She heard the word leave her lips. 10 in the morning. Excellent. We will see you then. The line went dead. She would lie in the darkness. She would stare at the ceiling. She would wonder what she had done. Dr. Sarah Chen's office was in a part of the city I own, where buildings are made of glass and steel, where the people wear expensive clothes, where ugliness has been erased by design. My medical center is on the top 3 floors. The waiting room is designed to look like a fine hotel. She almost left, but the receptionist had already seen her. Then Dr. Chen appeared, a woman in her 50s. She has kind eyes and an air of complete competence. She is very good at what she does. Lena Hayes. The doctor would offer a hand. I am Sarah Chen. Please come with me. The examination was precise. X-rays, an MRI, tests for movement, questions about her history, the pain, the limits. Dr. Chen is quick and efficient. She asks questions that show she is listening. Finally, she would sit back. She would study the images on her tablet. Your first surgeons did what they could, she would say. With the resources they had, they saved the leg. You can walk, that is something, but they only stabilized you. They did not restore you. The doctor would show her the problem. She would point to things Lena did not understand. There is too much scar tissue here. The pins are placed well enough, but not perfectly. And this part, she would show her a section. There is nerve damage. It was never truly fixed. Can you fix it? Dr. Chen would meet her gaze. I believe so. It will take 3 surgeries over 18 months. There will be therapy between them. It will be painful. Recovery is difficult. But if you do the work, the doctor would pause. I can get you to 90% of your function, maybe 95. 90%. For 4 years she had lived with 50. What is the cost? Dr. Chen would name a number so large it would make her dizzy. Hundreds of thousands. Perhaps more. I have agreed to cover everything, Dr. Chen would say. Surgery, therapy, all of it. You will pay nothing. For what? That is a matter between you and me. The doctor's face would show nothing. But I will tell you this. I have worked with Mr. Kane's people for years. He has paid for treatments for many who had no hope. In my experience, he has never asked for anything improper. In your experience? I am a mandatory reporter, Lena. If I saw something illegal, I would have to report it. I have never had to. That should mean something. She left the office with a folder of facts and a mind full of questions. She walked for hours. Her bad leg hurt. She weighed the choice. 90%. No more pain. No more limp. No more being the broken woman people felt sorry for. All for dinner with me once a week. It was madness. But living the rest of her life in a broken body was also madness. Working for nothing. Waiting for her body to collapse. That night, she called James Carter. He answered on the first ring. Miss Hayes, I want to know why. Her voice was direct. The real reason. Not the polite one. Why me? Silence. Then, I think Mr. Kane should answer that himself. Your first dinner is Friday. A car will collect you at 7. I have not agreed. Have you not? He was right. She agreed the moment hope entered her heart in Dr. Chen's office. Fine, she said. Friday. 7. Excellent. One more thing, Miss Hayes. I value honesty. Whatever you want to know, just ask. I will appreciate you being direct. The line went dead. She stood in her tiny room. The phone was still at her ear. She was staring at her reflection in the dark glass. She had agreed to have dinner with the most powerful man in the city. She had no idea what was about to begin. Friday came like a judgment. She stood before her closet, a small space in her studio. Her clothes were not made for dinner with a man who owns half the city. She had one simple black dress. She bought it for her mother's funeral 3 years ago. She had worn it twice since, for jobs she did not get. It would be enough. The car came at 7, not a minute before, not a minute after. A black car. The windows were completely dark. The car was not a vehicle, it was a message. The leather, the silence, the scent of wealth. It was designed to show her the world she was leaving, the world she could enter, my world. We drove through streets she had only dreamed of, past gates that protected men like me from women like her. The restaurant had no name, it did not need one. The people who mattered knew where it was. Inside, everything was perfect, controlled, quiet. I watched her walk through the room. She was an anchor of reality in my perfectly constructed fantasy. She looked small, frightened, broken. It was exactly what I wanted. I had shattered her world. Now, I would build her a new one, a beautiful cage, and she would learn to love it. She would learn to be grateful. It was a delicate operation, placing a wild thing in a gilded cage. She moved through my world like a ghost, utterly out of place. The people here, they are polished stones, smooth and worthless. She was a raw diamond. No one noticed her. They are trained not to see what I have not marked as important. The door opened. I stood, a courtesy I rarely afford. In the diner, I was a weapon. Here, I am simply a man. I wanted her to see that. I shed the jacket, rolled the sleeves. Power is best when it is not on display. My name on her lips was a hesitant thing. I offered her a seat. She moved with pain. That would be fixed. All things can be fixed with sufficient will. She asked if she had a choice. A foolish question. There is always a choice. Hers was to be broken, or to be remade by my hand. I would have let her walk away. An interesting specimen that failed the test is of no use. My word is my bond. It is the currency of my world. Lies are for the weak. A silent servant poured the wine. A simple test. She refused it. Good. Her resolve was not so easily diluted. I do not drink with business partners either. Not at first. Her hands, they betrayed her, clinging to the table as if it were a life raft. She was drowning in this quiet room. I told her to ask her questions. It was better to get the formalities out of the way. Why this? Why her? As if the reasons were not obvious. She thinks in terms of money, a transactional mind for a transactional world. She cannot comprehend a payment for something intangible. My life is a river of liars. They flow to me day after day, their faces masks, their words poison. They want, they take, they plot. They are tiresome. And then, there was her. She saw a girl in danger, and moved. No thought of reward, no weighing of risks. A pure, simple impulse. An act of beautiful, pointless self-destruction. It was the rarest thing I had ever seen. She called it desperation. I call it purity. She was real. In a world of ghosts and reflections, I had found something solid. The waiter brought the food. Art on a plate. Tasteless, meaningless. She believes she is a reminder. She is a dose of reality. She is more than that. She is a mirror to a world I thought had died, a world I had to kill to survive. I need to be 10 steps ahead. I must see every angle. I must trust no one. It is a crushing weight. Her simplicity is a kind of relief. A beautiful, dangerous simplicity. She called me terrifying. I was pleased. Fear is a useful tool. It creates respect. It clarifies intentions. Honesty is another. I use it more sparingly. It is far more dangerous. She thinks I know nothing of her. A child's assumption. I know every painful step of her last 4 years. The shifts worked, the money sent, the quiet endurance, the pain she never speaks of. She felt a chill. She called it watching. I call it research. One does not invest in an unknown asset. It would be foolish. I told her this was an investment in truth, in a person who does not know how to lie, a rare thing, perhaps the only one of her kind. We ate. I doubt she tasted the food. Her mind was racing, trying to assemble the pieces of me. A monster who pays for surgeries. A tyrant who craves honest conversation. It does not compute for her. She asked how I became this. A good question. A brave question. People are products of their histories. My father was a good man, a loyal man. He gave a company 30 years of his life. They gave him a handshake and 2 weeks of pay. The world taught me a lesson through him. It is not loyalty that is rewarded. It is not hard work. It is power. Nothing more. So I took it. I protect my own. Was she wrong to protect the girl? To put herself in harm's way for another? It is the same principle. We both sacrifice. My scale is simply larger. My methods, more permanent. She sees it as justification. It is simply an observation, a statement of fact. Her world is black and white, a child's storybook. My world is the endless swirling gray of reality. Every choice costs something. Every victory leaves a scar. To pretend otherwise is to be a fool. I do not accept this world. I rule it. I control it. That is the difference. Without me, there would be chaos. Men with no rules. Men with no honor. I provide structure. I provide certainty. She mentioned the girl. A negotiation. A tool to achieve a desired result. I would not have harmed her. But the threat had to be real. Her fear was the point. Her intervention, however, changed the equation. It was an unforeseen variable. So I adjusted my strategy. I paid the debt. She showed me courage. So I showed her mercy. It is a transaction. I wanted to understand her pain, not from pity, but from a need for data. To understand the asset, I must understand its history, its flaws, its breaking points. She told me. The words spilled out of her. A drunk driver, a ruined life, a dream destroyed. It was a common story, a story of weakness and victimhood. She spoke of the crash, the hospital, the debt, the end of her future. She learned to live with a limp. She learned to survive. It was pathetic. It was magnificent. The world is not fair. She knows this now. We finally understand each other on a fundamental level. I saw the final pieces click into place in her mind. I laid out the next steps: the surgery, the recovery, the paid wages. I had thought of everything. I had removed every obstacle. I was rebuilding her, better than she was before. I could see the weight of it settling on her. This was not a gift. It was a chain made of gold. She saw it. She understood that my generosity was just another form of control, more effective than any threat. She was mine now, not because I had forced her, but because I had saved her. And as I watched her absorb this terrible, beautiful truth, I felt the quiet satisfaction of a flawless design. She was real, and now she belonged to me. It was a simple transaction. I possess wealth beyond measure, an ocean of power. She possesses a flicker of something real, a currency my world does not trade. I called it authenticity. It was the only word that fit. She cares without condition. She acts without weighing the cost. That kind of purity is a weakness in my world, a flaw to be exploited. But to observe it, to have it near, is a strange luxury. I offered her a weekly audience with it. The price was her time. She stood, and I paused, extending the card. A direct link to my world. My power, condensed into a single number. She claimed she did not need it. A predictable response. She does not know what she needs yet. I will teach her. The car took her back to her small life, a world I could buy and sell before breakfast. The driver delivered his line perfectly, as instructed. "Miss Hayes," he said, "you must be someone special." She needed to feel that. She needed to believe this was about her, not about my own desperate curiosity. I know she felt confusion. I know she felt overwhelmed. That is the point. She has entered my story now. She just does not know I am the one writing it. She thinks of my words, of courage, of value. It is not dangerous for her to think that way. It is exactly as I designed it. The next 2 weeks were a matter of simple logistics. Calls were made, arrangements were settled. Her life was put on hold with a few quiet orders. Her gratitude, her friends' tears, were all anticipated outcomes. Predictable human emotion. It meant nothing. The girl believed I saved her friend. That narrative was useful. It bound her to me with a debt she could not comprehend. I explained it was a strange man's decision. That was the truth, just not the whole truth. She thinks she understands more. She understands nothing. At our next dinner, I watched her. The same room, the same manufactured intimacy. Her fear was a tangible thing, palpable. "What if it fails?" she asked. A simple mind asking a simple question. It cannot fail. I do not allow for failure. My resources are absolute. Dr. Chen is the best because I acquired her. If she fails, she will be replaced. It is a simple matter of finding the right tool for the job. She asked why it mattered so much, a good question. I told her a story about the truth in her eyes, about being haunted. It was a lie that felt like the truth. I saw something unbroken. I saw a challenge. A beautiful, wild thing I had to see if I could tame. The cost is irrelevant. I am a strange man. My promises are not to others. They are to myself. And I promised myself I would see her walk again. I would fix her. Then she would be mine. She was an asset in for repair. The hospital was mine. The staff was mine. The view from 18 floors up was mine to give. Dr. Chen performed her duties as instructed. 47 successful procedures. This one would be no different. I ensured it. I wanted to believe her. That is what she thought. Her belief was not a factor in the outcome. I arrived after the drugs had softened her reality. I wanted to be the first thing she saw when the fog cleared, a point of stability in her new, uncertain world. She thought she was hallucinating. The suit felt out of place. I am always out of place. I exist in a layer above these sterile, common spaces. You came, she whispered. A predictable observation. Of course I came. This was a crucial moment. I needed to see the work for myself. How do you feel? I asked. Her description of the pain was clinical. Accurate. Dr. Chen had performed perfectly. My investment was sound. She tried to move, a flicker of her old defiance. I calmed her. My touch was gentle, calculated. A reminder that I was her caretaker now, her protector, her source of comfort. She was a project, a beautiful, broken thing I found. I am here because order must be restored. Weakness invites chaos, and she was weak and alone. When she woke, I saw the fear, but underneath it, something else. Defiance. I told her I wanted to make sure she was okay. It was the truth. An asset must be protected. She said the Empire could not run without me. The Empire is an extension of my will. It can wait. I watched her sleep. I listened to her breathe. This was an investment, a chance. When she finally asked what I wanted, the real question came out. She thought it was about business, about leverage. I told her I wanted to feel human. It was the closest I could get to an explanation she might understand. She called me a monster. People always do. They see the results, not the necessity. They see the blood, not the disease it cleanses. I let her believe that for now. For a few hours with her, the world felt less disordered. Her recovery was a test of my judgment, of her will. Physical therapy was the fire that would temper the steel. I watched her progress from a distance. Each millimeter she gained was a victory for my investment. My presence was a reminder, a goad. I visited not just for dinner, but to assess my project. I listened to her complaints. They were data points, not signs of weakness, but measures of effort. She asked how I knew it would be worth it. A foolish question. I have seen empires rebuilt from ash. A broken bone is nothing. I told her she was strong. I told her quitting was not in her nature. This was not a guess. I know what I choose. Her defiance in that alley was proof of concept. It was everything. The day she walked was the day my investment matured. I saw her take those steps. They were not for her. They were for me. She wore my protection like an invisible cloak, and it made people afraid. This was good. This was order. The whispers were a perimeter, a wall I was building around her. The fear in the eyes of others kept them at a distance. It made her mine in a way she could not yet comprehend. She belonged to my world now. At dinner, she was radiant. She was smiling. She thought she was having a meal with a friend. A naive and lovely thought. She could not see the pieces moving on the board. She could not understand that her recovery was just the beginning. My world was not fracturing. It was consolidating. She was the nexus, the point around which everything would now turn. The whispers were not a threat. They were an announcement, an overture to the violence that was to come. She was about to learn what it truly meant to be under my care, and she would understand that the devil does not make friends. He takes what he wants. I watched her across the table. Something was wrong. Her smile did not reach her eyes. It was the whispers, of course. I had heard them, little currents of poison in my city. I fixed something that was broken. A life derailed by chance. It was a simple act of order, of power used correctly, but they see it differently. They see a waitress, a toy. They see a crack in my armor. I kept my voice even. Some see a lucky woman. Some see a fool. The unspoken words hung in the air. Some see a target. The ice I saw in her eyes was a reflection of my own world. Her world was small. A job, a bus stop, an apartment. My world was a kingdom of shadows, and I had pulled her into it. The text message was not a surprise. It was an opening move, a test of my defenses. They were watching her, which meant they were watching me. I felt a cold calm settle in my stomach. The game had begun. She could not say the words, so I said them for her. They believe you are my whore. It was a crude word for a crude world. I saw the flash of anger in her eyes. It is irrelevant what they think. Only the truth matters. My truth. Her truth. But she lived in a world of appearances, a world where reputation was currency. I offered her an escape. Walk away. A part of me hoped she would, the clean part, the part that remembered a different life. But she stayed. She wanted the impossible, my world without the blood, my protection without the price. I could make the whispers cease. A demonstration of power would silence them. To claim her openly, to put my mark on her for all to see, it would confirm their fears. It would also keep her alive. It was a simple calculation. Her life for her reputation. An easy trade. She did not have an answer. She did not understand the choices. She showed me the ghost of the message, a digital footprint of a threat. 3 in the afternoon, an amateurish time. He was already working on it. James understands these things. The hunt had already started. I needed information from her. Details. Anything out of the ordinary. She thought it was paranoia. It was not. It was survival. My enemies are patient. They are hyenas. They circle and wait for a sign of weakness. And you are that weakness now. The words were a statement of fact, not an accusation. She did not ask for this. No one ever does. But the choice was made. My choice. James will take you home. Security will be in place by morning. They will be ghosts. You will not see them. I gave her no room to argue. This is not a discussion. Your compliance or this ends. It was a cruel choice. A cage of safety or the illusion of freedom. The memory of the text made the decision for her. Good. Fear is a useful tool. James would be thorough. He knows the protocols. He would place the right amount of fear in her heart, just enough to keep her cautious, to keep her on the paths I have designated. Her routine was now a tactical map. Any deviation was a risk. The number I gave her was a direct line to my wolves. They would answer. They would respond. She would not sleep. I would not either. Every sound would be a threat to her. Every car a potential attack on me. The men were in place the next morning. Invisible. Professional. They were my eyes. Her friend at the diner noticed. Of course he did. He is part of her routine. A known variable. The first week was quiet. A false peace. I let the enemy watch. Let them see the cage I had built. Then came Friday. I was exhausted. The search for the sender was draining resources. It was creating tension. It was making me look weak. The silence in the room was heavy. I knew she needed an explanation. The truth was a weapon. I decided to give her a piece of it. There is unrest. My judgment is being questioned. The Sal matter was a mistake. I showed compassion, a fatal error in my world. In my world, mercy is a sickness. Kindness is a vulnerability. And you are the symptom of my disease. That is what they believe. My own people think I have lost my edge. My rivals believe you are the key to my destruction. She offered the logical solution. To end it. To cut the infection out. It would be the smart move. The strategic play. But I could not. I told her why. Because this is the only real thing in my life. This talk. This quiet. This moment of peace. It is the only time I am not a monster. It was the truth. It was also a lie. I was keeping her. I was chaining her to my sinking ship. I knew the danger. I saw the abyss waiting for her. And I chose not to let her go. I respected her strength, her refusal to be small. I treated her as an equal because in my world, she was a rare, clean thing. I don't want you to walk away either, she confessed. A warmth spread through my chest, a dangerous feeling. Then we proceed with caution, and you will obey James's security rules, without question. I said it for her safety. These animals I deal with have no honor. They will use her to wound me. I thought she knew. She did not. 3 days later, my control failed. It was a Tuesday. She stayed late at her job, a foolish, noble act. She walked out the back, into the dark alley, a place my men were not watching. I had given the order. The front entrance only. A mistake. My mistake. The alley was a pit. The light was broken. A detail I should have known. She was alone when the footsteps found her. 3 of them. Not my men. They were hyenas. Scavengers moving with a practiced ugliness. They knew her name. A statement, not a query. She tried to run. A foolish, brave act. Her body betrayed her. The leg I had paid to fix failed her. She fell. They were on her in an instant. A hand on her arm. I felt the echo of it. Her scream was a blade in my gut, the sound of tearing tissue, my investment damaged. The concrete met her skin. "Do not make this difficult," one of them said. His words were a stain. They wanted to ask about her boyfriend, a title too small for what I was. "He is not my boyfriend." Her defiance was magnificent and costly. The man's words were poison, twisting my actions into something cheap. He thought my care was a lie. He believed nothing. So he hit her, a sloppy, brutish strike. I felt the impact like it was my own jaw. Her blood in her mouth. My fury became a cold, still thing. They wanted to use her as a lure, to call me, to lecture me about things they could not comprehend. Territory, respect. I will not. She was perfect. He hit her again. He broke something. My control snapped. They threatened her with pain. A long, slow lesson. They took her phone. The emergency contact I gave her burned uselessly. Her hands were bound. Her pain was a symphony of their failure. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, I will call him." A smart girl. He released her. She was to make the call convincing. Tell me she was hurt. That she was scared. I had to come alone. Or she would die. Simple. They gave her the phone. Her hands shook. My name on her screen. A beacon in the filth. She was thinking. Looking for a way to warn me. To protect me. She was loyal. The phone rang. I answered. Her voice was an alarm. "Lena, it is 1 in the morning. What is wrong?" "I need you." The fear was not an act. It was pure. "I am hurt. I am at the diner. Please come." "I am on my way. Are you safe?" The animal was watching, a gun in his hand. "No," she whispered. A perfect, final warning. "And Victor, they want you to come alone." She ended the call. The man smiled. A dead man's smile. They hid her in the alley, tied her to a pipe. They waited in the shadows, like the insects they were, hunting me. Her body was a clock counting down their last moments. She had set the trap, and I was the steel jaws. 20 minutes, an eternity of their stolen breaths. She tried to free herself. She tried to scream. They threatened her life again. So she waited. For me. The sound of my car was a promise. They tensed. My footsteps were steady, deliberate. I walked into their pathetic little stage. I received the call. They had taken her. It was an unacceptable breach, a foolish and fatal error on their part. I went alone. Predictability is a weakness, and they would expect a show of force. My force is silent. It is unseen until it is too late. "Let her go," I said. My voice was calm. It was the calm of a storm about to break. They postured. They threatened. They did not understand the difference between a man with a gun and a true predator. I gave them a chance. They did not take it. My men emerged from the darkness. They are not men. They are instruments of my will. James was there. Always there. The mistake of the kidnappers was not taking her. It was thinking they could keep her. The violence was brief, efficient, a surgical procedure to remove a cancer. There was no pleasure in it, only the cold satisfaction of restoring order, of correcting a mistake. I held her. She was trembling. A damaged asset. I told James to clean the mess. Evidence is for the police. We do not leave loose ends. In the car, she was a broken bird, whispering apologies. She did not understand. Her fear was a distraction. This was not her fault. It was mine. A miscalculation. I had underestimated their desperation. A mistake I would not repeat. They thought they could use her to wound me. Instead, they revealed themselves. They showed me where the rot was. At the clinic, Dr. Chen was waiting. I do not like seeing my investments damaged. The news of torn ligaments was an annoyance. A delay. Weeks of progress undone by worthless animals. I watched the doctor tend to her. Her pain was a reminder. The world is a dangerous place. But I am more dangerous. She thinks I am a monster who hurts people. She does not see the truth. I am the only thing keeping the real monsters away. Rest was a luxury we did not have. Dawn was breaking as I drove her home. I stopped the car but did not let her leave. "This cannot continue," I said softly. "They came for you once. They will do it again." "So, what are you saying?" "I am saying you must disappear. For a time. I have a safe house. Secure, protected. You will be comfortable there until I eliminate this threat." "I cannot just disappear. I have a job. A life." "You almost died tonight." The words scraped my throat. "They would have killed you, Lena. Slowly. To hurt me. And I could have done nothing to stop it." "Then maybe we should end this." A foolish idea. A child's solution. "If being with you puts me in danger, it is too late for that." I finally met her gaze. My eyes would make her understand. "You are already connected to me. Everyone knows. Ending our arrangement will not make you safe. It will make you prey. So I am trapped. You are protected. There is a difference." I showed her my phone. Showed her a picture of the house. 20 minutes away, fully staffed, secure. You would have everything. You would be alive. She saw the beautiful prison, the cage I built for her. "What if I say no?" "Then I assign a full security team. 6 men, 24/7 coverage. They will be your shadow. You will have no privacy, but you will have my protection." Both were losses for her. But she was looking at me now, and I could see it. She was finally starting to understand. She was mine to protect. Losing a life was not an option. Not her life. She was too valuable now. The safe house, she said. A sensible choice. She believes it is temporary. Just until it is over. That was my line. I let her believe the lie. My world does not have an exit. The threats are permanent. She will learn this. 3 days later, she was installed. My property moved into a more secure location. The house is beautiful. It is also a cage. The staff are ghosts. The security is invisible and absolute. She feels the walls closing in. That is the desired effect. I visit her. I give her updates on a carefully crafted investigation. We dine together. We pretend at normalcy. But she feels it. The wrongness of it all. The slow, creeping realization that her old life is gone forever. 2 weeks feel like 2 years. Good. Time should move slowly in a cage. Her leg is healing. The body is a simple machine. But her mind is where the real work is being done. The attack left its mark. The faces, the fear, the taste of her own blood. She replays the moment I arrived. She sees me as her savior. She does not see the architect. This was the only way to keep her safe. I brought the Thai food she liked, a small piece of order in the chaos. We ate as the storm raged outside, a weak echo of the power I command. It was time to tell her. I have news. The gears of the world were turning as I willed them. She needed to understand her part in it. "Who?" she asked. Her voice was tight with fear. "A man named Marcus Vulov. A foolish man who ran his territory poorly. He has been testing my patience for months." I kept my voice even, a calm surface on a deep ocean. "He took you to prove a point about me. He believed I had grown soft." Her eyes widened with the question she was afraid to ask. I will do what is required, what I should have done long ago. I held her gaze. I will remove him from the board entirely. The words settled in the air between us. She understood. She had seen my world up close in that dark alley, but hearing the clinical truth of it was different. You are going to kill him. It was not a question. I am going to remove a threat to my world and to you. Yes. She clung to a world that did not exist. There has to be another way. The police. I almost smiled at her innocence. The police are his employees. They cannot touch him. My patience was a tool, one I used carefully. Even if they could, it is irrelevant. My world has its own laws. To show weakness is to invite attack. If I do not answer this, others will come for you. They will try to use you against me. She saw only the cost. So more people die. I saw only the cause. More people die because they chose poorly. I reached for her hand. It was cold. This is not your burden, Lena. You did nothing wrong. She tried to protect someone weak. It was an admirable, if foolish, impulse. Your courage brought you to me. Everything that followed is my responsibility. She fought against the simple truth. But I stayed. I chose this. I accepted your help. Her choices were illusions. She simply did what was necessary. You chose to live, to heal, to walk. I squeezed her hand gently. Do not confuse the will to survive with guilt. We ate without speaking. Her silence was troubled. Mine was focused. In her mind, she wrestled with morals. In my mind, I finalized my plans. Actions have consequences. She was finally learning that lesson. When? She finally asked. The question was acceptance. Tonight. I leave within the hour. Her eyes flickered with surprise. You are going personally? I must. Anything less would be a sign of weakness. I stood from the table clearing the plates. A simple domestic act. A brief return to a life I could never have. It will be done by morning. You will be able to go home. It was a simple promise. Just like that. Just like that. With him gone, his entire structure will crumble. His seconds will tear each other apart for the scraps. You will be forgotten by them. A piece of old news. I stopped at the sink, my back to her. You will be safe again. You can live your life. But there was a new complication, a loose thread I had not anticipated. What are you not telling me? I paused. The truth was just another weapon to be used. There is something more. Information I found while looking into Vulov. I turned to face her. Time to adjust the equation. This was the only path. Honesty was a blade. It had to be sharp. Her brother, Daniel Hayes. He was mine 5 years ago. I watched the world shift in her eyes. What? A simple name? A ghost returned. He ran a crew for me near the warehouses. He was good. He was loyal. Then he was not. My voice remained level. A necessary calm. He took what was not his. First small sums. Then he grew bold. $200,000 by the end. Her body swayed. She reached for the counter. A fragile anchor. Not possible. He died in an accident. I buried him. Daniel died because he ran from my men. They followed him to a construction yard. He fell 4 stories. My gaze held hers. Steady. The official report was a kindness. A fiction to protect your family. Your mother never knew his choices. You are the one who killed my brother. The words were hollow. Numb. My men chased him. His own fear made him fall. It was not a kill order, Lena. It was a consequence. I moved toward her. A careful step. I did not know his name meant anything, not until I looked into you. When did you find out? 2 weeks ago. After the attack. I searched every connection. His name appeared. 2 weeks. Her voice found its fire. My brother is dead because of you, and you stood beside me, and you said nothing. I did not have the words, and I was afraid. The word felt foreign in my mouth. Afraid of what? This. The way you see me now. The monster they whisper about. I saw the storm building in her. The need to break something. To inflict pain. Her charming brother Daniel. The one who promised help but delivered betrayal. He had been a thief. He had stolen from me. He had died from the consequences. She never knew. Did he suffer? A broken question. No, it was fast. I made certain of it. My control was fraying. I know this does not fix it. Nothing I say can. But you must understand. I did not know about you. If I had known he had a sister who fought for every scrap, things might have been different. Might have. A useless word. Maybe. Maybe not. The past is stone. I cannot change it, Lena. I can only give you the truth, and hope it does not destroy us. I should hate you. Her voice trembled. I should leave this place. I should never see you again. You should. And you can. James will take you. You will be safe until Volkov is gone. Then you will be free of me. Is that what you want? No. The answer was raw, torn from her. But it is what you deserve. A life untouched by me, untouched by the world that follows me. She closed her eyes, thinking. Her brother was a thief. My world had claimed him. And I, the man who saved her, who gave her back her legs, had been the cause of her deepest wound. It should have been clean, a simple fracture. But we were tangled. I need time. Her voice was quiet. I need to think. You will have all the time you need. I went to the door, paused. I am sorry. For the record, not for the consequence. Your brother chose his path, but for your pain, for your mother, who died with a lie, for the years you were alone when he should have been there, for all of it. I was gone before she could answer. She stood in that kitchen, surrounded by my world, and she wept. For the thief, for the lie, for the girl she used to be, for the future that was now poisoned by my past. She did not sleep. She watched the storm, and I knew she was wondering how many more would fall. Volkov. Nameless men. Their blood would feel like her own. Dawn arrived, gray and unforgiving. My message was sent through James. It is done. I am safe. Volkov is erased. No details. Just the clean, professional result. The threat was gone. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt empty. I gave her space. I did not go to her. James went, a sterile presence delivering food and updates, a proxy. On the third day, I sent the girl, Emma. A calculated move, a friendly face from her old life, to see her reaction, to gauge the damage. Emma, how did you? Mr. Kane sent me. He said you might need a friend. Emma's eyes absorbed the scale of the house. This is where you are? It is temporary. Lena let her inside. How are you? The diner? Strange. Marcus asks about you. The girl sat on the edge of the sofa, afraid to touch anything. Are you all right? The rumors are flying. About the attack. About Mr. Kane. About death. It is complicated. Everything is. Emma's voice was a soft thing. I came to thank you. For what you did. For protecting me. This is not your fault, Emma. Perhaps not. But I feel the weight of it. The girl twisted her fingers. Mr. Kane visited me last week. Did you know? The question was a test. What? Why? To ensure my safety. To offer his protection. And to tell me that you were the bravest woman he had ever met. Emma looked at her then. He said you changed everything for him. He said you made him feel again. He said that. He also said he could never forgive himself if you were harmed because of him. He is trying to fix it. But he fears he has lost your trust. Emma leaned in. What happened, Lena? What did he do? So Lena told her. The dinners, The surgery, the attack, her brother, the ugly truth that bound us together long before we met. She spoke of the choice, to walk away into safety, or to stay, to accept a life with a dangerous man. Loving. Emma heard the word Lena did not mean to say. You love him? I do not know. Maybe. Her hands covered her face. How can I love a man who causes so much pain, who deals in violence and fear? But he also saved you. He gave you a life. He protected you. Emma's logic was gentle, but sharp. People are not one thing, Lena. He may be a monster, but perhaps he is a monster who is trying to be a man. For you. That is too much to carry. Love often is. The girl stayed for 3 hours. When she left, the storm in Lena had calmed. That evening I returned. I was tired. The violence had taken its toll. The shadows were deep in my eyes. The war was over, but the real battle was about to begin. The violence had left its own exhaustion, a hollow ache, but seeing her made something ignite inside me, just for a second, before the control returned. How are you? I asked. Her answer was uncertain. We should talk. We sat. A chasm of polished wood separated us. The rain tapped against the glass, a soft, insistent drum. She spoke about her brother, Daniel. I braced myself for the hatred, the revulsion. I deserved it. But her words were not what I expected. She hated what he did. She hated that he died afraid. Then she looked at me. But I don't hate you for it. Surprise was a foreign country. I had not visited in years. She spoke of the brother she loved, and the man she did not truly know. The choices he made, the price he paid. Her eyes met mine, clear and steady. You did not kill him. She said my men were doing their duty, that his death was a tragedy, not a murder. That is generous, I managed to say. It is honest. She leaned in. Her focus was a physical force. I need the truth from you, no games. Anything, I vowed. Did you know about him when you helped me? When you paid the debt? Was it guilt? I held her gaze. I would not lie to her. Not about this. No, I learned 2 weeks ago. Everything I did for you was because I wanted to, because I saw something in you, because you acted from courage, not from greed. I had to make her understand. Learning about Daniel changed nothing. It only showed me our lives were already entwined. Fate. Or something darker. It was not guilt. Okay. She believed me. The relief was a crack in my armor. What happens now? She asked. The future. A landscape I had to shape for her. That is your choice. My voice was a careful measure. You can return to your life. I will protect you from a distance. The dinners can end. You would be safe. You would be free. I paused. Or you stay. Not as an arrangement, but as someone who matters. Someone I protect because I must, not because of a deal. I moved to the window. The city lights blurred in the rain. I know the danger, the cost. Being with me makes you a target. It is not a fair thing to ask, but I am asking. Her heart was a frantic bird against my senses. Why? I turned. The mask was gone. I let it fall. Let her see the ruin beneath. The raw truth was a blade. Because somewhere between the diner and the surgeries and the Friday dinners, I fell in love with you, and I have no idea what to do with that. My confession hung in the air, a final desperate gambit. She rose. Her healing leg was a testament to the violence I brought into her life. She came to me, close enough to see the fear, the certainty that she would leave. I do not know if I love you, she said. Her voice was a whisper. I might, but I am terrified of what it means, what my life will be. Then do not choose me. The words were acid. Choose safety. Choose a normal life. Normal was never for me. She reached out. Her hand on my face was a shock. From the moment I fell, everything changed. I cannot go back. Who are you now? I asked. I am still learning. Her hand fell away. But I know I am not ready to leave. Not yet. The words were a reprieve, a pardon. I pulled her into my arms, held her like she was the only anchor in a storm. She leaned against me. She let herself feel safe with a monster. She dared to imagine a future built from wreckage. I cannot promise you safety, I whispered into her hair. I cannot promise normal, but I can promise honesty, loyalty, my protection until I stop breathing. And love. The word was so fragile. And love. More than I knew I could still feel. We stood as the light died. The rain washed the city outside. Two broken people, trying to build a bridge across a chasm. She knew there would be more violence, more impossible choices. But she was choosing, not just surviving. Take me home, she said. Not the apartment, not the safe house, to where you live. I want to see your world. I pulled back. I had to be sure. Are you certain? No, but I will do it anyway. A smile broke through my control. Real, unguarded. In it, she saw a different man. A man who might have been, if the world had been different. A man who could be, if she gave him a reason. We left that night. The city lights streaked past us. My home was a penthouse. Not for show, but for solitude. And for taste. Books. Art. A telescope pointed at a sky I could never truly see. This was the fortress of a man who had everything and no one. I do not bring people here, I said, watching her see it all. This is private. Then why bring me? Because you asked. Because I need you to see me, the real me. Not the boss. Not the monster. Not the man in the suits. I took her hands in mine. Just Victor. The man I am when no one is watching. She looked again. She saw the truth of it, the philosophy, the history, the man who looks for stars even when surrounded by darkness. I see you, she whispered. And you are not what I expected. Better or worse. More human, she said. More complicated. We talked for hours, about her brother, about my past, about the uncertain path ahead, about the impossible place we now stood. I told her about the business, the attempt to build something legitimate from its bloody roots, the violence I was trying to contain, a legacy I did not want. I spent 10 years building an empire, I confessed. Empires are just kingdoms built on graves. I do not want that anymore. I want something real. Like what? Like this. Her presence was a challenge. She saw my darkness and did not flinch. You make me want to be a better man. I touched her face. Like you. She fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted. I watched her from the chair, too restless to sleep. This woman had become essential, a complication my life could not afford and could no longer exist without. The answer to what came next arrived 3 days later. James came with news that shattered our peace. We have a problem, he said. No courtesies. A Volkov lieutenant survived. He is talking. He says you had a personal vendetta over a woman. He glanced at Lena. The word is spreading. They question your judgment. They say you are compromised. Let them talk, I said. It was nothing. It is not just talk. 3 of our biggest partners want a meeting. They need to know you are still focused, that you have not gone soft. That word, an accusation. My face became stone. Tell them I will meet them tomorrow, all 3. I will make it clear my personal life is not their concern. And Miss Hayes stays here. Under my protection, it is not negotiable. James left. The world I built was closing in. Our fragile peace was over. Reality had returned. This is what I meant, I said softly. The cost of being with me. I know. She crossed the room to stand beside me. I am not running. You should be terrified. I am, she said, but fear will not make my choices anymore. She kissed me. For the first time, she started it. It was a soft, careful thing, a promise, a declaration. When she pulled away, I could only stare. I love you, she said. The words were stronger this time. It is not smart. It is not safe. But I love you, and I choose you. My only answer was to pull her close, to hold on. She was the one thing that kept the monster at bay. Or perhaps she was the reason for it now. The meeting was in a warehouse, neutral ground, a place for predators to gather. I spent the morning preparing. My calls were clipped, controlled. Lena watched me from the window. I could feel her fear. You do not have to come, I said again, fixing my cuffs. It would be safer here. We had already, this was a breach of protocol, a contamination. Victor stood with the woman, presenting a problem as if it were a solution. They needed to see her, he claimed, to understand. I understood perfectly. He had allowed an emotional attachment to jeopardize our entire structure. It was my duty to correct this, to restore order. I saw his tie, perfectly straight. Her hands fussed over it anyway. A useless gesture, a claim of ownership. He spoke of wanting something real. This chaos was what he called real. This fight was for her, not for us. He believed her presence was a sign of strength. I saw it as the final symptom of his disease. He held her hands against his chest, a foolish, sentimental display. Brave, he called her, or foolish. Both were liabilities in our world. She smiled, claiming she learned from him. She had learned nothing of value. We came to the warehouse, a clean, sterile location for a necessary procedure. James and his men secured the building. Their professionalism was a small comfort in this mess. When I arrived with the others, Victor stood with her. He made her his equal. It was not a declaration of strength, it was an open wound. The others saw it too. Raymond Torres, Chen Wei. Predators, yes. But we were predators who understood the rules. The rules Victor was now breaking. Our eyes all fell upon them. Upon him, and the source of his weakness. So I spoke the truth. A simple, cold assessment. This is the woman who started a war. Victor's correction was immediate. The steel in his voice was a poor imitation of his former self. This is Lena Hayes, he said, and she did not start anything. He claimed my brother made the first move, that his response was merely business. Torres laughed. His amusement was as sharp as a knife. You destroyed his entire operation for a waitress. It was not business. It was passion, a fatal indulgence. That is emotion, Kane, and emotion is a flaw. Victor's denial was absolute. He claimed it was not about feeling, it was about rules. He said Volkov came after what was his. A flimsy excuse. If he had let it pass, he argued, others would see weakness. The opposite was true. His action showed everyone his weakness. Chen Wei, ever precise, cut to the heart of it. His voice was soft, but the question was a blade. Is Miss Hayes one of your people? Or is she the sickness itself? A liability. The woman tensed. Then she spoke. Her voice was an intrusion, an unwelcome sound in a place of business. I am standing right here. She demanded we speak to her directly, as if her opinion mattered, as if she were one of us. All of our attention fell on her. We weighed her, measured her. She was a disruption, nothing more. My observation was simple. Bold. A trait with little value. It did not answer the essential question, what are you to Kane? A vulnerability. A blind spot. A crack in the foundation. She claimed to be a reminder of why he built his world. Her words were empty. She spoke of control, of protecting the weak. Our world is not built on mercy. It is built on strength. She claimed his human choices made him different. Different was dangerous. Different was weak. Torres dismissed her words as I did. A pretty speech. Mercy does not forge empires. Fear does. Respect, earned through unwavering strength, does. And Victor's respect was bleeding away. Victor's voice interrupted. A desperate attempt to sound like his old self. He spoke of holding the city together for 10 years, of maintaining a delicate balance. He said he did it without becoming a monster. A foolish distinction. We are what we must be to survive. He called his purge of Volkov a demonstration of strength. He was wrong. It was a public display of his own compromise. But he did it for her. Chenwei's quiet words hung in the air. The undeniable truth. He made a critical decision based on a personal feeling. How could we trust him now? His judgment was corrupted. He insisted it had never been clearer. He spoke of his past, a decade of cold calculation, a life without attachments. That was the man I respected, the man I trusted, an empire built on a solid foundation of fear. Partners held in line by certainty, a world where nothing mattered but the next move. Then he admitted the truth. The woman changed him. She infected him with sentiment. She told him that the right choice was not always the profitable one. A child's logic. Protecting her, he said, was worth more than his reputation. He looked at each of us. His eyes held a strange new fire. He confessed he destroyed Volkov for her. He would do it again. Not from weakness, he claimed, but from a newfound purpose. If we had a problem with that, we should say so now. We would settle it. The silence was a coiled snake. Violence was a possibility, a necessary one, perhaps, to excise the rot. Chenwei was the first to move. He studied Victor. You have changed, Kane. The question was simple, for better or for worse. Better, Victor said. No hesitation. A man utterly convinced of his own delusion. He claimed to be more fair, more measured. He had not gone soft, he said. He had become strategic. It sounded like the same thing to me. Show us, Torres demanded. A challenge, a final test. Prove you can still make the difficult choices. Victor asked what he had in mind. Torres showed him a tablet. I knew its contents. Marcus Chen, the nephew, a thief and an informant. I watched Victor's face. I saw the trap close around him. This is Marcus Chen's operation, Victor said. His voice was flat. Chenwei confirmed it. His own family. A problem that demanded a ruthless solution. Mercy would be seen as weakness, and execution would prove his humanity was a lie. There was no correct move. Victor looked at the screen, then he looked at Chenwei. He asked a question I did not expect. What do you want to do? Chenwei was surprised. He was not expecting a choice. He is your nephew, Victor said. Your family. He explained that a purely business decision would be simple, an elimination. But this was complex. He asked again, what do you want? Chenwei considered this. He wanted his nephew to learn, to be better, but he doubted it was possible. Victor handed the tablet back. His solution was elegant, a choice, exile with a new life, or a chance to earn back his place. A final warning. No third chance. He called it business, but with an option for redemption. He called it family. He said it was not weak to value both. I laughed. I could not help it. He had changed. He had found a third way, a clever move. But it was a trick, a performance. One good decision changes nothing. The weakness is still there, inside him, waiting. This was a necessary correction. The old ways built an empire on bones. I spoke softly. Now, I am building something to endure. Lasting empires require more than fear. They need loyalty. They need the illusion of respect. They need the performance of second chances. Torres saw the truth. He asked what happens when mercy looks like weakness. I would remind them that true danger is a kindness offered when none is required. My smile was a blade. I am not soft. I am deliberate. There is a distinction. Those who forget it will be educated. They looked at each other, their silent language of distrust still spoken. Chen Wei offered his hand. He could accept a strategic mind. Kane was back, but remade. The others followed. The air in the room changed. It was not friendship. It was not trust. It was an arrangement, a recognition that I was still a predator, just a more patient one. Torres paused before leaving. The girl remains with you. She does. My confirmation was absolute. Then she must be protected. She is your vulnerability now. They will come for her. Let them, I thought. They will find only a reflection of what happened to Vulov. The partners departed. The warehouse became a hollow space. She finally exhaled beside me. That was terrifying. Her words were a whisper. It was a required performance. I pulled her to me, letting the mask of tension fall. You were flawless. Everything I said about you was true. She leaned against me. What comes next? Now, we build our life. We will be careful. We will be together. The following weeks were a strange ballet of shadow and light. She moved into my home, a fortress she did not see. She kept her old apartment as an anchor to a life she was leaving. She even returned to the diner. I protested, but she needed her stage of normalcy. Her friend Emma saw the change. You look different, she observed. Happy, but afraid. Is that possible? It is the only way to exist in my world. Emma understood. Are you afraid of him? No. The fear was for the consequences of being with me. The fear that our world was too fragile. Yet, you are staying. I am staying. Her smile was a small rebellion. He is worth the risk. I was changing my business. Legitimate fronts were being constructed. Violence was becoming a scalpel, not a hammer. Every move was a calculated risk, every change an invitation for my rivals. But my resolve was firm. I was building this for her. I told her this one night. The city lights spread below us. For us. So one day the fear might end. I will always be afraid. Her honesty was a rare gem. Fear keeps you aware. Fear means you understand what is at stake. 3 months later, I brought her to my true office, the one with my name on the glass, a world she had never seen. I have something for you. I showed her the documents on the screen. I have been working on this since the night she was hurt, since her vulnerability became my own. What is it? It is a foundation. It is funded by my clean businesses. It will help people who have nothing. People like you were. People my brother was. I turned the monitor toward her. I want you to lead it. She simply stared. The bylaws, the funding, the mission. It was all real. A machine for laundering my past into a decent future. Why me? Because you remember what it is to be helpless, to be broken by a system that does not care. You understand the need. I took her hands. You have a strength in you that others lack, and I want to build something clean with you, something that is not about power or profit. This would change her life. I know, you would leave the diner. You would run this instead of serving coffee. It would place you deeper in my world. You would become visible as mine. I let that hang in the air, but it would give you a mission. It would give you power. You could help others as I helped you. She read the papers again. The structure was perfect. The funding was secure. It was designed to save people. It was the dream she thought she had lost. Yes, she said. I will do it. My smile was genuine. It was the answer I had constructed for her. The foundation opened 6 months later. Lena was its director. The first life they saved belonged to a small boy, a single mother's son who needed a surgery she could not afford, an operation to let him walk without pain. Lena wept as she signed the papers. This is it. I watched her. This is power used for good. I had forgotten the feeling. Then remember it, she said. Remember this feeling when your world gets dark. Remember, you can be more than what you were. She kissed me in that small office, surrounded by the stories of broken people. She believed she was accepting me. In truth, she was finally becoming part of me. A year after she fell at my feet in the diner, we held an event for the foundation. It was a small gathering. The staff, the volunteers, the lives she had touched. Her friend Emma was there. Her brother was healthy, his treatment paid for by my money. Even Dr. Chen attended. He smiled at her. "You have changed many lives," he told her. "Yours included. Victor changed mine first. A simple truth. I am just passing it on. You are doing more. You are creating a legacy." Dr. Chen looked at me from across the room. "And you have changed him. I have never seen him look at anyone that way. How does he look at me? Like you are the answer to a question he forgot how to ask. Like you are his home." Later, on the balcony, I brought her to the edge of the city's light. "I have something for you." I held out a small box. Her heart jumped. "No, this is not a proposal. Not yet." Inside was a single key. "It opens a house far from this city. A place to vanish if the world closes in. A place to be safe. I bought it 6 months ago. I have made it our sanctuary. Our final move if the board is ever overturned. Why give this to me now? Because you must always believe you have a choice. You can stay here with me, in this life, or you can leave." I offered her the key. The perfect cage is the one the occupant does not see. This key was the final seal, my proof. I pressed it into her hand, a perfect, clean choice, my gift to her. I would provide for her escape. I would ensure her safety. A clean break, if she wanted it. She had to choose me freely. She held the weight of her own chains. My name was on the lock. I would wait for her decision. That is my love. A cage with an open door. She would stay because she wanted to, not because she had to. Her fingers closed around the metal. A silent contract. The kiss that followed was a surrender, soft and deep, a validation of all my work. She learned the truth of my world. It is complex. It is brutal. It requires a strength she never knew. It means choosing the monster every day, knowing he could devour you. She learned stillness is a weapon. Not running is a form of power. She spoke against my lips. A promise. An oath. Not today, not tomorrow. She accepted the fight as her own. She accepted that this would never be simple. She smiled at the idea of forever. A beautiful prison. A perfect sentence. "It is," I agreed, my forehead against hers. This was the prize I never knew I wanted. To be seen completely. The darkness and the man. And to be chosen. To be wanted for all of it. Not in spite of it. I never thought I would walk beside another soul. One who saw my power instead of my damage. She tested her leg. A reminder of what I fixed. We are both creatures of my design. We stood as the night consumed the world. Two broken things I had forged into something whole. The foundation would continue my work. A monument to my mercy. My businesses would be cleansed. A new kind of empire. Dangers would always circle. Life would always be a war. But we would fight it as one. A year later, the ring was a formality. A symbol of ownership she accepted with tears. I chose the witnesses. Only those loyal to my world. Her friend. My man. Our vows were an unbreakable contract. A promise to choose my protection forever. I realized she misunderstood her own story. She thought her life ended in that diner. She believed her future was small and broken. That was not an ending. It was a baptism. The moment I chose her. The beginning of her understanding true strength. The beginning of learning that fear is a tool. That action is everything. The beginning of finding purpose in my shadow. With a man who built a kingdom on force, and was now building a legacy on her. 5 years after the ceremony, she stood in my new building, a temple to my methods. With tools and staff to fix the people the world discards. She watched a girl take her first steps. Another project. Another life I reshaped. I came to her side, my hand found hers. Does she remind you of my work? Every single day. She squeezed my hand. The girl I saved, she is now the one in control, a beautiful illusion. She laughed. Her legs are strong now. My doctor confirmed my success. 94%. Close enough to what I required. You were always my perfect creation. I pulled her into my body, even when she was shattered. A lie. A truth. The difference is a matter of perspective. I kissed her temple. A mark of possession. Time to return home. Always. We left my foundation. Her steps were confident, my design. My hand rested on her back. My city spread before us. Still my domain. Still full of shadows I command. But we moved through them together. We drove toward the penthouse. Toward the life I constructed. Built from my choices and my mercy. She thought of the diner. Of collapsing at my feet. Of the words that gave me everything. I cannot run. She was wrong. She could stand because I allowed it. Because I rebuilt her piece by piece. But the true miracle was her loyalty. She no longer had to fight alone. She had me to stand with her. I showed her mercy as the sharpest blade, not from weakness, but from its power to reshape the world, to turn my monsters into men and my broken toys into queens. I chose her over my old life, and found this power was greater. Together we were building what no one could have imagined. We were building a life I deemed worthy, a love worth defending, a future that proved my impossible stories have the endings I write for them. Not because they are easy, but because they are earned. One of my brave choices at a time. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.